It's like we actually need to learn how to be in relationship to the tree itself, to life itself, to creation, to sex and death and birth and all of the experience of human incarnation, and to be able to carry that wisdom in a righteous way.
Welcome to Follow Your Heartsong, where we reclaim pleasure, break taboos, and awaken to our deepest desires. I'm Rose Heartsong, bringing you raw, unapologetic conversations on sex, spirit, and self-liberation. Let's dive in.
This is Follow Your Heartsong with Rose Heartsong, and I am here every single Sunday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this is KXFM Laguna Community Radio. I have a very special guest tonight. All my guests are really special, but this one's like extra special. She's been a dear sister of mine for, I believe, 14 years now. We met in Kauai when we were 18 and 21. We were little girls. And we met in massage school. And the second our eyes met, we felt like soul sisters. There was a remembrance and a knowing. And she's also my partner in Shine with the Magdalene Film Project, which I've talked about a lot here on this show. So if you've heard me talk about that, her name is Roxanne Ruby. And she is an inspiration, a friend, a sister, a family, community. We have grown up together and rose together and been there for each other in some of the most potent moments of our lives through death, birth, love, pain, divorce. So many different things we have seen each other and held each other. And so welcome, Roxanne. I'm really happy to have you here. Roxanne is a ritualist, a spiritual leader in the community. She creates conscious events that are for a purpose. She's a mother and a dear sister. And so thank you. Please introduce yourself. I love you so much, and I'm so grateful to have you here.
Rose, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here and get to open up this word, this conversation in this space, inviting in whoever is tuning in live. Welcome. We have no idea what today's conversation is going to be about, but there are infinite directions in which we could go. Just to give a little intro to myself, I am a student of the sacred, a lifelong, eternal student, always have been, always will be, Sagittarius sun, ever curious, ever passionate, always learning. And I've been blessed along my journey to find myself surrounded by teachers ever since a young age. I grew up with parents who are yogis, and so the philosophy of yoga was really a strong foundation for me. My grandfather is a Tibetan Lama, Buddhist Lama from the Vajrayana Buddhism tradition, and he was really my first spiritual teacher and has really blessed and shaped my path in many ways. And from a young age, about 18 years old, I was introduced to more indigenous ways of life and practices through the Native American church, which actually Rose invited me into with my first sweat lodge in Ipi. And from there, I feel like I really found the heartbeat of my spiritual path. And that has led me to different wisdom keepers and traditions from around the world. I've been blessed to connect with many cultures, many languages, many different walks of life that have informed my own path. And recently, over the past 10 years, I've been in a deep study of Kabbalah, hermetic magic, Egyptian cosmology, and oracular arts with my dear sister and teacher, Isis Indria. I am a mother, as Rose mentioned. I have a 3.5-year-old son. My family lives in Central America, although a lot of my work is here in California as well. The mission of my heart is to infiltrate mainstream media and entertainment and to bring forward a message of value, to utilize film, music, really media of all sorts to be able to raise consciousness and tell a new story, which we are in dire need of right now. So happy to be here, following that purpose and opening a conversation here in this space with you, Rose. I love you so much, and I'm stoked to be here and see what arrives in the space today.
Me too. Oh, as I heard you speaking and sharing your story, I was thinking about the name of the show, and it's Follow Your Heartsong. And I think that's one of the things that you and I have done so well in our few years on this planet that we have is we just follow what lights us up and what lights our heart on fire. And a lot of the core foundation of the show is sexuality, spirituality, and holistic health. And I think out of everyone I know, you're probably the closest to walking that path with me in all those core aspects. Like, we have dove deep into the realms of health together, and we have dove deep into the realms of spirituality together. And for those of you who are listening, Roxanne is coming out of the sexuality closet tonight. She has been behind the scenes studying in a really powerful way with some incredible teachers for a very long time. And you don't really talk about it out in the public. And so I feel very honored that, and it also makes sense at the same time that I'm initiating you into that realm of communication out to the public. We co-create a immersion called the Watchtower Immersion in honor of Mary Magdalene, and a matriarchal lineage training with some of our incredible teachers as guest speakers as part of it. And the last one that we hosted was actually a lot about sacred sexuality. And so we had a pretty big dialogue during that immersion, but it wasn't public. What we've shared of that immersion has not been so much around that topic so far. And so I feel really grateful, honored, and also it totally makes logical sense that I'm initiating you in that way, and under an Aries full moon, of course.
The timing is immaculate, no doubt. And yeah, it's completely appropriate that you are dominating me into bringing this conversation forward. And it's everything in time. I've known for a while that this moment is coming. And I feel still, meanwhile, I have over really over 2 decades of study in the path of Tantra, and I carry a lineage from my direct lineage of my grandfather passing on this wisdom to me since a young age, the theory, the philosophy of Tantra from a Buddhist perspective. And then I've also gathered many teachers and teachings along the way. But yes, it's been very much a personal process, a personal practice. And I feel like such a baby and such a novice still. Yet I also trust that this is an important conversation to bring forward, especially in this time when humanity is facing so many challenges. And our relationship to sexuality is essentially our relationship to our own existence, because it's where we all come from. And we're living in this moment that it's so deeply stigmatized or distorted. There's this spectrum with sexuality of essentially what we talk a lot about amongst ourselves is the spectrum of the virgin or the whore, and that sexuality is either taboo and made to be sinful and inappropriate and something that's behind closed doors, or on the other end of the spectrum, it's sex sells. It's in our faces. It's being used as a major marketing tool and really being prostituted in so many ways. And so I feel really the responsibility of bringing forward this conversation, especially as we consider ourselves to be torchbearers of the Magdalene teachings and bringing her legacy forward, is let's talk about sex.
Let's talk about sex, baby.
And the reverence of it and the beauty and the wild and the sacred and the profane, all of it, to be able to normalize it and in that way normalize the human experience, and in that way reclaim our own experience as humans and be able to settle ourselves into the seat of our life.
I want to bring something that came to me while you're sharing that. For those who are listening and don't understand what Tantra means, Tantra does not necessarily equal sex. It's a whole philosophy and a technology and a lineage, and it involves basically the core essence of Tantra as just being present with what is. That's the simplest thing. So I just want to say that because you said that you learned Tantra from your grandfather.
I thought that could get weird.
Yeah, so I wanted to claim that that could sound very edgy for somebody, but your grandfather is very ethical and very respectful, and it's a technology and an education process. It's not having sexual relationships with your family members. I just want to clarify.
But even
that.
then, it is edgy. I was talking about sex with my grandfather since I was entering into adolescence, but it wasn't, it was done with a way of respect, and it gave me this very grounded perspective of sex. It was like, okay, this is something that's done, and it's done in a sacred way where there's a lot of pleasure. There's also a lot of power that gets cultivated. And as you're saying, Rose, it goes so far beyond the act of penetration and sexuality. And the word tantra means to weave. It's a weaving. It's a weaving of body, mind, spirit, heart, emotions, energies, ancestry. When we do merge fully into union with someone physically from our lineage of teachers that come from the Andes of Colombia that I've been studying with for the past 5 years, they say that the only way to completely merge with someone and also to therefore merge your ancestry is through the art of making love. And so coming at it with that perspective of like, when you are penetrating or penetrated by someone and you enter into that full union, you're essentially taking on their entire ancestral lineage as well, which that can be weighty, right? And just really thinking about it with more consciousness and consideration of what are the contracts that we're entering into with our sexual endeavors. And then at the same time, recognizing that Tantra is a way of life. And like currently right now, I am practicing celibacy, and I am also experiencing like more of a tantric awakening than ever in my life. And we can get more into that. But I do want to also just acknowledge as we dive into this conversation that I am not formally initiated into certain levels of Tantra, and there's different sects. There's the Buddhist lineage, there's more of a Hindu lineage, and there's different empowerments and teachings and deep initiations that come along with it. And I do believe that right now, especially in the New Age movement, there's a lot of like overnight shamanism and overnight Tantra teachers that are coming online and being like, I'm gonna lead men into like sexual awakening and sexual empowerment and teach them all these things, and I'm teaching Tantra, and like they don't have the foundation, the lineage, the support, the elders that are guiding them and teaching them and showing them the way. And it can actually be very dangerous, I think, to move energy in this way if it doesn't have the right foundation. And so all that being said, we're entering into this. We are young women, and we do, I believe, carry, and maybe some of you out there too, feel this sense of a memory in your bones that is, I am a Dakini, I'm a Tantrika. I feel this like force, this life force moving through me, and I want to share it with others. Yet I think especially in this moment where there's so much innovation taking place and like life is moving really fast, and especially within the New Age movement, there's a lot advancing, that it's really important that we keep coming back to like our humble need for lineage and really for training. And for me, that's been my whole path is like train hard. Like I mentioned at the beginning, student of the sacred, I'm here to train. And so I pray that whatever we share on this podcast here tonight, that this can be like an invitation for you to train, and whatever sparks interest in you and whatever path feels right for you, whether it's more like a kink or the sacred arts of Tantra and that more maybe like wholesome, holistic side, that you let this be an invitation for you to follow that inspiration and to find teachers, to find books, to continue to tune into this show and to make a journey for yourself, make a path for yourself to study.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things I was also thinking about, like going back to the being educated by your grandfather from a young age and having this conscious conversation. My mom also talked to me about sex at a young age, and she taught me how to take care of myself. And you and I have traveled the world alone, by ourselves. And we have never had anything happen that was disrespectful to our bodies, or I'm going to use the bigger words like molestation or inappropriate experiences while traveling. We've both been very safe in our bodies and our vessels and don't have a lot of trauma to work through. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that our parents talked to us about the conscious aspects of sexuality from a young age. And that gives children empowerment, I believe. And that's one of the reasons I have this show and that I talk about it out loud so loudly. A lot of people don't talk about it as loud as I do. And yet it creates a permission slip to be more intentional around our sexuality. And in the intentionality around our sexuality and in the empowerment and the power, really, then we have the ability to say no. And we have the ability to make choices that are smart and wise. and protect ourselves. And both you and I have traveled in very interesting places at very young ages by ourselves. And that has created a lot of beauty in who we are and how we show up, and also a lot of confidence and clarity and safety. So I really appreciate that. And I think if you have children, I do invite you to have conscious conversations about like the beauty of it, and don't bring in shame or guilt or fear necessarily, but there is a certain level of fear to bring in to teach people, your children, how to be responsible with their own bodies and how they take care of themselves in a good way.
Definitely. And that being said, I consider myself very blessed and lucky, and I believe that we are probably in the vast minority of women who have not experienced severe sexual trauma. Yet, speaking for myself, I have experienced sexual trauma, and I've experienced even circumstances that could be viewed as, even in a few instances, maybe could be viewed as rape, because I gave my power away, and I, within my own inner authority, I chose to still recognize my power within that, and to do the healing work necessary to transmute those and learn from those experiences. And now I feel part of the way that my own platform is evolving, and even breaking through, and you popping my cherry and inviting me onto this radio show to talk more publicly about this, is I do feel called to be a voice on behalf of the sexual sovereignty movement, and to be able to empower women and men and families, and that dialogue with our children and sexual education, to be able to really dismantle the toxic relationship that has been formed with sexuality, so that we can see a major decline in our lifetime of the sexual trauma that's happening in the world, and which really is causing such a severe wound in humanity. And I believe is actually at the core, is one of the core aspects of why humanity is facing such intense climate right now as a species, is because of that very essential piece of our relationship to sexuality being very dizzy and distorted.
Yeah, definitely. I did a curiosity of why it is so distorted, right? I went down to that rabbit hole of what is the story? And then I realized, like, I was having some conversations with people, and they're like, what's the original sin? And so it was so interesting. So then I went back to the Bible, because I like to read the Bible and the scripture. And I actually read that the original sin was not sexuality. It was disobedience. And how they didn't do what God said. That was it. But somehow, because after they disobeyed God and then they saw each other in their nakedness, they've kind of like attached that to being, oh, they had sex and that was the original sin, and it got distorted from that story, which is so interesting. Wish we could go on a whole rabbit hole, but there's
lots of rabbit holes there of how to decipher the Bible. Yeah. As I understand the idea of original sin, and I don't know how deep we want to go down this rabbit hole, but it's Eve eating the fruit of the tree of life. And there's so many metaphors in there. As a decade-long student of Kabbalah, which is the tree of life, yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that conversation. And this idea that essentially woman ate the fruit of knowledge that comes from the tree, which for me, the whole story that has then been laid on top of that from the doctrine of the Bible is very extremely distorted and creates this dynamic where, like, for us to receive the fruit and the wisdom that comes from the holy blossoming tree of life, that's actually a sin. Like, for me right there, I'm like, this is just completely backwards. Like, we actually need to learn how to be in relationship to the tree itself, to life itself, to creation, to sex and death and birth and all of the experience of human incarnation, and to be able to carry that wisdom in a righteous way. And yeah, dismantling sin is an entire topic. And I believe that's the moment that we're facing right now as a collective, is being able to learn how to receive the fruit of wisdom and to steward it in a good way.
Yeah, for sure. And going back to the topic of Tantra and like these sacred lineage and learning how to work with the energy of sexuality, I think is and you said the words sexual sovereignty, right, is ownership of our sexual energy and being sovereign in that piece. And that means I see the majority of humans as I walk around being slaves to their sexuality, to their energy. And I talk a lot about the dom-sub dynamics and the kink and the BDSM. And the majority of humans on this planet are submissives to their sexual energy. And they are letting sex run the show, whether that is a man or a woman. We both do it. We just do it in different ways. And I think part of that, like the submissiveness to our sexuality, is a piece of the patriarchy. And it's a piece of letting it run the show.
Yeah, exactly. And what we're losing is something really valuable that we've, and a lot of what I'm going to say right now, there's a generalization, obviously, like not everyone has lost touch with the power of our subtle nature, but like on a mass scale, generalizing here. So if this isn't relevant to you and you feel very in touch with the subtleties of life, then that's awesome. Good for you. Yet we've become, especially with the advent of technology and these little devices that we look at like hundreds of times a day that create this immediate dopamine response. And then also like the swipe culture of these dating apps where we're like hooking up and we just go like 0 to 100 really quick. And like, I don't believe we're biologically hardwired to receive the amount of information that we're receiving on a daily basis, mentally and physically, sexually. So many experiences where we're just like getting laid and there's like this immediate gratification, but we're losing the value of all of the infinite things that happen before we arrive at that point. And I've believed that has repercussions in our entire life experience, because we're like getting off on these like quick highs, and it creates this like really steep roller coaster of we need a lot of stimulation in order to achieve our climax, and speaking physically but also metaphysically, whereas there's just so much to be enjoyed along the journey. And that's what I'm dancing with right now within stepping back into this commitment of celibacy is, wow, what are all of the little subtle things that we get to enjoy if you're sitting across the table from someone and you do feel that attraction, versus like immediately being like, okay, like we want to jump into bed together and take it all the way, be like, wow, what are the infinite possibilities of what can be experienced, and just like tracking, being like, wow, okay, I invite you if you're at an event and you meet someone and you feel certain feelings, and to check in. And like Rose said, so wise, how you brought awareness to that ultimately the path of Tantra is supreme presence and being able to fully experience what is happening here in this now moment. And my invitation for you who are listening is to, like, when you feel that attraction, even if it's with a long-term partner, to, before it's just, oh, like I'm feeling turned on, let's go. It's, wow, okay, like I'm feeling. First of all, just like I'm feeling, what am I feeling? Where am I feeling? What is it? What color is it? What is that sensation? Do I feel it in my chest? Do I feel it in my pussy? Do I feel it in my feet? Like in my crown of my head? Like where physiologically are those sensations appearing? And then I imagine that could even be like a really interesting conversation to have with a beloved or a potential partner, to be like, wow, okay, this is what's moving in me. And before you like get off all your clothes and hop into bed together, to be like, what are you experiencing right now? This is what I'm experiencing. This is what it's bringing up for me. It's bringing up vulnerability. It's bringing up excitement. It's bringing up fear, to like dialogue about it. And in that way, create more intimacy. Like I also believe we're suffering from a lack of real, true intimacy and a vulnerability and authenticity. And authenticity is the highest vibration of our experience. It vibrates. There's a measurement. Somehow they're able to measure our capacity of experience. And there's a vibrational measurement for these dynamics. And authenticity actually vibrates higher than love. And when we can come into intimacy with someone and be fully authentic and arrive in the present moment and have that weaving of our fullness here and now as we are, and then bring presence into that by really noticing what's alive for us. And then if you are, whether this is like a personal practice or if you're in relationship with another person, then you can make that even more juicy by engaging about it, talking about it. And then there's so many layers of then, okay, like I'm feeling a lot of emotion coming up. So, okay, I'm going to breathe into that. And emotion is energy in motion, right? So I'm feeling this like edge and it's making me feel alive. And even if it's a little bit maybe uncomfortable or like you like want each other so bad, you just want to like jump over the table and ravish one another. It's sit in that, steep in that, be in the brew of all of those juicy hormones that are being released in the dance of desire, and let that saturate our entire being. And that is such a generative force. And as an event producer, this is something that I've seen in the events world, is that there's, and it's relevant to sexuality because there's like these events happening. Like for instance, even yesterday we had this big festival down in San Diego. It was beautiful. A lot of potential energy was created. Yet I don't know where it's being directed. I didn't feel that the event gave really like a tip of the arrow of, okay, we have all this potential energy. People are dancing and connecting and there's like a lot of collaborative capacity in the space. Yet I think we're reaching a point within our human evolution where we need to then like consciously determine where are we sending that potential energy. And the same is very true also with our sexual encounters. Again, whatever spectrum it is, whether it's like a juicy conversation or like really the act of sexuality, like ultimately we can create life, like we can create a baby, but we don't need to create a baby. We can create all kinds of things, and we can take that sexual energy that's being cultivated, and then with our amazing human minds and this forefrontal cortex that we have to consider future and possibility, and we're in this moment in our story together that we really need to be imagining a new world. And I believe that one of the keys to be able to truly bring forward a new world is to cultivate these sexual energies, and then not just to get off and have orgasm and then integrate that and whatever, but be like, okay, like this energy is building, and basically we're creating like a vortex, whether it's through our own self-practice or practice with another. And then like, where are we sending that? And there's really an opportunity for us to essentially raise the vibration of the planet through our sexual acts.
Have you ever had a super sexy, fun night and you're in the heat of the moment, you didn't care about any fluids, and then afterwards you crawl into your sheets and they're a little damp or a little crusty? Well, I have a really fun solution for you, because honestly, towels kind of suck. Let's be real. They're rough and not waterproof. So you want to get yourself a splash blanket. They're a super lush, soft, luxurious blanket that you have no idea is waterproof when you feel it. No crinkles, no sounds, super high quality, easy to throw in the wash and dryer, and lasts for years. I've had one for 4 years and it's in great condition. You can head over to splashblanket.com and use my discount code Rose Heartsong for 10% off your first order. And I'd love to hear about how it goes. So reach out to me on Instagram at Rose Heartsong and tell me about your splash blanket moments. I'd love to hear from you soon. Now let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, for sure. And the interesting thing as you're thinking about, as we're talking about this, is you and I have had so much education and information about this. And when I'm working with my clients, a lot of times people will come to me because they've had a sexual awakening or like a Kundalini awakening, and it really scares them and it's really overwhelming. And they're like, what was that? And I want that, but I don't know if I want that. I'm scared of it. Like, it's intense. Oh my goodness, what happened? And so I love that you're talking about that, like the energy and the fuel is one of the things of the suppression and the guilt and the shame and all of the stuff we have to work through as like the human level, and working through our own animalistic, like primal desires around sex, but then dropping into the spiritual element of sexuality and working with that energy it's really potent energy.
Power.
It's so powerful. And I think that's one of the reasons it's been suppressed the way it has, because it's potent and it's power and it's big and it can create a lot. And I love that you're like talking about, let's put it into something. Let's use it as fuel to create something. And a lot of times, one of the things I actually learned, and that was so anchored in me, that I talk about a lot, that you learned also from Sama Zadora, because we both studied under her in our own ways, was that the majority of orgasms are like a figure 8, and they bounce in between the 2 lower chakras, so your sacral chakra and your root chakra.
Yes.
And then they drain out below you. And then that draining out of the root chakra, it's almost like it drains the primal essence. And in draining the primal essence, then we deeply yearn and crave sex again. Yeah. And it becomes this toxic, submissive, yearning and deep desire that can go all the way down to the most horrendous things around sexuality that I don't want to talk about. But that's what that creates. And one of the things that I practice in my own practice, and I'm imagining you do as well, is learning how to bring that sexual energy into different parts of the body and up through the spine and through the heart, and opening the heart and opening the throat chakra and opening up your ajna so you can have more intuition, and opening up your crown so you feel more vibrant and glowy and alive. And I think that's kind of part of like longevity and youthfulness and like beauty, really, is like pleasure, like true embodied pleasure radiates such a deep level of beauty and awe. And you can see it. Like I can see in people whether they're having really good orgasms or not. Just walking down the street. It's an aura and it's an essence, and using it as fuel to co-create. And I think I've used my sexual energy a lot in our Magdalene projects. It's been a huge fuel for me, and the co-creation of that, massive. And it's like self-pleasure, and then using my self-pleasure practice to fuel into creativity. If I have a creative block when I'm writing or I'm creating, I'll just go masturbate.
Oh, it's the best.
And then have a breakthrough. And then I'll be able to go back into my creativity. Yeah. And so I love that you're speaking to like using it as fuel and directing it. And that's so important.
For sure. And speaking just from female orgasm, like there's so many types of orgasm on a bodily level that the female body can experience.
I think there's 20.
G-spot, cervical. Yeah, exactly. But I believe it even goes beyond that, because ultimately our brain and our cranium is where the orgasm actually happens. So, okay, the simulation is happening downstairs, but the ultimate result is happening in this explosion in our brain, and all of these hormones that get released. And so I like to imagine that even like when I'm in the lovemaking chamber, like I am right there, like bringing the energy up my spine and into my brain, and this fireworks show that's taking place is also connecting me to God, to creator, to creation, to source, to my own divinity, to the divinity which gives birth to all of this. And that is such an exciting conversation for me of like, how are we bringing spirituality and sexuality together, and really finding that sweet spot where they both unite, and letting that be a huge part of the intention of the work that we're doing, is like bringing the sacred back into sex.
Good thing you're on Follow Your Heartsong with Rose Heartsong on KXFM Laguna Community Radio, and we're talking about sexuality and spirituality with Miss Roxanne Ruby over here. That's what this show is all about, is like the core intention. And then I do bring in the holistic health, because if you're not healthy, it's hard to have good sex. If you're having health issues, if you're in pain, if you're suffering, if you're having gut microbiome issues, if you're having nervous system dysregulation issues, or thyroid problems, or any sort of health problem, sex is the least desired thing to do, because sex brings more awareness to the body. And it brings a very like magnetized experience to what's present. And that's one of the reasons I love kink so much, is because you can work with it. And unfortunately, this is my worst case scenario that has ever hoping to not happen, happened. I can't even talk right now. Last weekend, I was at a festival, and I had somebody drop 10 feet from the sky on the top of my head. And I ended up in the ER, in the ambulance, in the emergency room, and I've been going through a deep concussion this week, and I got out of my concussion yesterday, and it's been scary and humbling and a lot. And also I have the tools from my 6 years of pain in my body and knowing how to take care of my spine. I don't have anything broken, and I'm not paralyzed. I'm not dead. Thank Goddess. I'm so grateful. That being said, I have an acute awareness to how the nervous system impacts sexuality. So that's why I've had a lot of guests talk about nervous system on here. And also, I've talked about it, like, because I'm in so much pain around my neck, having pleasure in my body and being choked is a really big healing experience for me, because it's bringing like that pleasure in the body to a part that's had a lot of fear.
Yeah, like it's like the nervous system affects our sexuality, but then at the same time, our sex can affect our nervous system. Like it's like there's a doorway there. So even like you're saying, like if we're physically unwell or suffering, there's actually an entry point there where even though it can be hard and off-putting and we don't want to do it and like it's easier to not to, whether it's like we're dealing with emotional trauma or physical dynamics, there is actually a way, I believe, and I from personal experience, that if we do make it a practice to cultivate our sexuality, to go there, to do things like de-armoring, which I know you've talked about, that we can actually like rewire either emotional trauma or also physical ailments. I believe that we can, this is the conversation of sexual healing, that we can actually really heal on a deep level our physical disease through sacred sexuality.
Because pleasure feels good. It does.
And it might not always feel good too.
Yeah, that's true.
It might be like, oh, this is like edgy and uncomfortable. And like I'm not very well versed in the kink scene, but from what I do understand about it is that there's a doorway there of sometimes you lean into the discomfort enough within a safe environment that's well held with clearly defined boundaries, and tremendous healing can happen.
100% has for me. And going back to what you were talking about like the conversation and the turn on and sitting in that and talking about it and having that play. One of the things I love about what you were saying that like you didn't say, but you said, is that it's a consent conversation and boundary conversation, really. And that like that the pre-intercourse penetration should, I believe, always come with some sort of communication around boundaries and consent. And you can make it sexy. It's foreplay in its own way. It's a really erotic turn on. And that's something I've had to learn with my spine injury for the last 6 years. And I'm going to continue learning on, because I'm humbled and overwhelmed and frustrated. But also whenever I have an intimate experience with somebody, before we get physical, I have to communicate. I have a neck injury. Like, you can touch me this way, you can touch me that way, you can't touch me this way. And any interaction that I have, and it's given me this unique ability to have that voice. And that's one of the things, like, as we have these traumas and as we have these challenges in our physical body, it gives us these opportunities to use our voice and communicate what works and what doesn't. And I think it's really important.
Yeah, communication around sexuality is such a crucial piece and a part that's being reclaimed in a big way right now, especially amongst women. I'm a woman. I'm around women, mostly talking about this in circles of women. And I hope and I pray and I believe, and I'm pretty sure I know, actually, I'm witnessing it happening also amongst the men. Like, they're learning how to also speak their boundaries and their vulnerabilities and their edges and their needs and their desires, and like together in whatever type of hetero or homosexual relationship we're in, whatever our dynamic is of lovership, whether it's a full-on committed relationship or just like a one-night exploration, that we're learning how to use our voices. And there's such a connection, especially for women, between our yoni, our pussy portal, and our voice. And as a singer also, I have been recently exploring that if I am going to spend a night singing, that if I get off that day, my voice is going to be infinitely more attuned and aligned. And so there's this really fascinating relationship between, as you were saying, like creatively, like if you're working on a project and you reach a dead end and you can masturbate, bring yourself to climax, and there's so much more creative energy to pour forward. Similarly, just straight up with our voices, it's like this double, it's like a mirror of like, we learn to use our voice and then we experience better sexuality because of it, whether it's with consent or expressing our desires. And then the same on the other side, like when we are having amazing sessions of pleasure, again, whether it's with ourselves or with a partner or with partners, then it also feeds our voice. And we can then go out into the world and express ourselves more clearly in our work environment, on the radio show, in our art forms, whatever those may be. And so there really is this loop, how you said, like the figure 8 moves in many different ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm just thinking, like, I'm loud when I have sex.
Yes.
I express a lot of vocal toning when I'm experiencing pleasure. Like I've heard a lot of women express pleasure from a place of performance because of porn. And I don't do that. And it can be raw and wild and expressive. And I've noticed that in the moments in which that is not the most respectful thing for those around me, when I hold my voice down, my orgasms aren't as strong. They aren't as powerful. And they are correlated in the expression. And funny enough, so Roxanne and I have been friends for 14 years. And in those 14 years, we have shared, not at the same time, but 2 men. And one of them made a comment actually about how loud I was. I'm not going to say his name. Not the one from TP, the other one.
Oh my God.
But he made a comment about how loud I was. And I remember that. And I was like, don't shame me. No, like I'm expressing my pleasure. And maybe you haven't felt that fully, completely. And so I called him forward in that. I was like, like you like it and allow yourself to like it.
You better like it. Oh my God, I'm such a moaner. Put me on a massage table. I'm going to moan the entire time.
And now you're a singer.
Yeah. It feels good.
Yeah. One of the guys I knew about it. And then the other guy, that was funny. You called me up one day and you're like, I'm in love. And I'm like, with who? And you told me and I'm like, oh, I've already been there. I forgot to tell you.
There's a name for this. What is the name of like sisters that have shared?
It's in Costa Rica, actually. I learned this from a girl I was working with. It's hermanas de leche.
Like sisters of the milk? Oh my God. Good grief. Yes, we are sisters of all sorts.
Sisters of all sorts. But I love that we can talk about this openly because one of the things that you and I would love to dive into right now, we have about 10 more minutes. It goes really fast.
Wow. Yeah.
I know. Is sisterhood.
Yeah.
And you and I are so incredibly dedicated, both of us, to creating sisterhood and creating circles of sisterhood and connection as a sister and devotional committed relationships with our sisters. And like you and I have been through some men in our lives, in our friendship, but we still have each other. And the fact that we can be hermanos de leche and laugh about it and not have we've never had any jealousy or competition or cattiness or really any fights. We've only had one fight and I wish it was recorded because it was really funny. But that's so incredible. We went 14 years without a fight. Yeah. That's insane that we did that. And I'm so
But we
grateful.
have also, like how Rose used the term, called each other forward. We've definitely called each other forward infinite times.
But we don't fight.
No.
And we do it from a place of love and compassion, and we've rose together. We have become who we are with each other. And I'm very proud of that. And when I work with my clients, the first thing I do is ask them about a lot of times what their relationships are in their sisterhoods or their brotherhood. And I think that's one of the most important things is to have a tribe of women that you love and honor and devote to and respect and care for and call forward, because we need that sometimes.
Yeah, and coming back to, as we wrap up this conversation, I love this thought that a good conversation, the sign of a good conversation is that it ends the way it began. And coming back to this word of Tantra and to weaving, it's like we are human. There's a sign on the door that says, be a good human. And I have a podcast also called Be Human. So it's like we're rehumanizing ourselves. In rehumanizing ourselves, we're restoring the village. Yeah. And in order to really be well woven, it isn't just being woven within the partnership of the beloved. in whatever unique configuration that is. But it's also having that community that can support us. And especially now stepping into the archetype of the mother over the past few years with the arrival of our son, I've seen how crucial we had sex, we had a baby, we have a community, and thank the goddess for that community, because our son is being raised by a village and he's got really an awesome parental support team. But then he has all these aunties and uncles that are showing up for him, that he knows have his back and are going to always be there for him for forever. He was just with Rose getting to celebrate their reunion after almost 2 years of not seeing each other. And it's me too. Like, I have that sisterhood behind me, and our family unit has that greater community supporting us through the twists and turns and evolutions of our relationships. And so in that way, we're able to not just put all of the expectations and all of the load of being fulfilled in every way by our partners. I get fulfilled, my cup gets full by all my relations, my sisterhoods, my brotherhoods, the awesome humans in my life, my elders, the children that I know. Like, I get so fed and nourished by all of those relations. And so then when I am in a divine union partnership, it's not like I need everything to be fulfilled by that one person, which is impossible because that's just never going to happen, and it's quite unfair. And so I think also, as we wrap this up, this word of Tantra and the reweaving of our humanity, we're also inviting this possibility to break out of the nuclear model. And yes, may the nucleus, may the hub and the core of the family be well and a really solid support with solidarity amongst the essential family model. But then also to have this greater support team is so important, and historically is the way that we have humaned, is having the village, having the community, having these greater tiers of support, so that we're not just like behind the white picket fence, behind the closed door, dealing with all of these family dynamics, expecting to have our cup fully fulfilled by one person and then ultimately running empty, because we can't do that to each other, for each other. We need to have this broader support system. And so that's really a huge part of my vision and my prayer of what I want to bring into the world, is recreating that community essence.
Yeah, I love that. And you're doing a really good job.
Thank you.
You do such a good job. And in that, for those of you who are listening, it's important to nourish and give to your friends, and to stoke the fire of relationship, and to nourish it and give to it, support it and uplift it, and to not be catty or pull each other down or judge each other or be victims to the other person. But if somebody steps out of line, let them know in a kind, compassionate way. And we've been able to do that for each other.
And even ask consent. Like, Rose is so good at that. She applies her kinky training into our friendship. Hey, are you open to feedback on that? Rather than just like giving me unsolicited advice, I've always felt like there's an opportunity for me to say no. But I don't, because I know her advice is really good. I'm like, yes, please tell me what to do in this situation. And she brings forward that wisdom from a space of consent. And so we have that mutual understanding of, okay, this is the conversation that we've both signed up for. Then I can prepare my nervous system to receive the feedback and be called up in a beautiful way. And our sisterhood has lasted through the years because of that. And yeah, especially amongst women, we are dismantling this dynamic of competition and comparison and judgment and restoring the sisterhood. Yeah. And it's such an exciting thing, because the Western woman is going to change the world. The Western woman is changing the world. And it's really not just like a woman by herself, but it's like behind every woman is a freaking army of women that are lifting her up and cheering her on and supporting her. And that for me is like the making for a true revolution. And that's the work that we're doing with Magdalene and with Watchtower and with just our own sisterhood, is we are really paving a new way, clearing a new path of, or recreating a path of that solidarity within sisterhood, and how we can support each other through all the ups and downs and twists and turns to lay a good foundation for relationship with ourselves, with each other, with our families, with our own understanding of the divine, with nature, with all of life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when we're filled up with our sisterhood and our communities, then we are a cup that's full, and then we can feed into our relationships from a fullness and not from a drain disconnection. And I see the majority, not all, but the majority of relationships are their partner does everything for them all the time. They have to fulfill all their needs for everything. And then it creates a drain and a disconnection and a resentment. And it's unspoken expectations too. It's not consented. There's not an asking question. And a lot of times in the consent conversation that you're talking about, I celebrate no's. When somebody says no, like I can tell like they're like uncomfortable. They're like, oh, I had to say no and I'm not really feeling it. I'm like, yes, I'm so excited that you said no right now. Thank you for saying no and honoring yourself.
I do that with my son. Sometimes he'll meet people and like he doesn't want to hug them, or sometimes he'll establish a boundary with me if I want to do something or go somewhere. And whenever he gives me that clear no, I always am like, thank you for asking for what you need. Thank you for expressing your no. I celebrate that.
Yeah, it's important to celebrate your son and our friends and everyone. And I do, if it's a big thing, I call my friends every time. If I'm going through something, I'm like, hey, I'm going through this. I'd love to talk about it. Are you available for that? I even said it tonight. Like, I wanted to talk about a challenge I was having with a past partner. I said, are you available? And I think that's really important. And it creates a spaciousness, and every little aspect of that is so important. I do want to say that Roxanne and I just co-created something really beautiful. And we haven't really fully launched it yet completely. We have a little soft launch and had a little bit of people, but we've been deeply devoted to Mary Magdalene and studying Mary Magdalene for the last 5 years together and sharing with each other. And it's been a core foundation of our sisterhood. And we created a beautiful course, and if you go to magdalenefilm.com, you can see all about the Mary Magdalene project we're doing. And that course, it's called Her Story, Remembering Her Story. And it's going to dive really deep into the topics we've been talking about tonight, like deep down the rabbit hole.
4-hour deep dive.
Yeah. So I highly recommend you going to magdalenefilm.com to check that out. And then also, Roxanne, share a little bit about what it is that you're creating in the world and how people can find you if they want to learn more about what it is that you're creating. I know you're like, you got a band all of a sudden, and you're doing, for those of you who know Roxanne Ruby, she's always doing 200 things at the same time. And I'm one of her best friends. And business partners, and I never know what she's up to. So
got to keep them guessing.
People are like, oh, what is she doing? Where's she doing? And I'm like, I don't know. Ask her.
I am refining and focalizing. The Magdalene Film Project is definitely front and center for me right now. And I've been in a contemplation with myself over the past season of how to consolidate my efforts and my passions and what I love into one great service that can nourish myself and my family, and also really deeply nourish the world, because that's my marker for everything I do is, okay, this serves me, but how does it serve humanity? And not just the humans, because humans are weird, but most importantly, actually, how does it serve the nature, and how does it serve the non-human beings that our action as humans affect every day? And I am very excited to be sharing a project that will be public by the time this episode gets put out on the afterwaves. But right now, as we're on this live radio show, it is in the birthing portal. And in the next few days, it will be ready, and it's called Inheritance Collective. We can log it in the show notes. The website is inheritanccollective.love. And this is a global movement of uniting people, creating community, and developing a for-benefit collective that pools attention and resources, just a little bit of resources from many people, to be able to make very significant change. And we're going to be supporting all kinds of different human and non-human beneficiaries, from the animal kingdom to stewarding land, and really at the heart of it, developing community, because that is such a tool for transformation, as we've spoken about. So if you're looking for community, if you're looking to be a part of something, if you're wanting to be involved in making significant change on the world, but maybe sometimes don't feel very clear with how, we have a really exquisite team, amazing leadership and stewardship that's been brought together with a lot of juicy artistic flair. And we're going to be rolling that out this month here and sharing ways to get involved and to participate both in an online space as well as local events around the world. Wherever in the world that you are, when you're tuning into this, you are welcome to participate in that. And if you follow me on Instagram, I'm Lover of the Garden, and you'll be able to really track the journey of Inheritance Collective and the way that we are embracing the divine inheritance that we've been given and the responsibility that comes with that, and how to really govern ourselves and this beautiful planet that we call home.
Beautiful, beautiful. So it's inheritancecollective.love. It's Lover of the Garden.
Yes.
Is your Instagram and your podcast?
Be Human with Roxanne Ruby.
Yay. Yeah. I adore you. I love you. I've been dreaming of the moment of you being in here, wanting Ruby Chase is next on the list of wanting to have her be in here.
She's coming. She's
coming. I know. So it's such an honor to have you. It's such a juicy conversation. And yeah, follow your heart song. We talk about sexuality, spirituality, and holistic health. And we are here live on the radio on KXFM Laguna Community Radio every single Sunday night from 9 to 10 p.m. And we like to talk about the taboo here. So thanks for going on that journey with us. And for you, the listener, you know, it would just be me and Roxanne having a conversation like we always do on the phone or in giggling in our bed.
Lots of that.
Lots of that. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And your medicine is needed, and your sexual evolution is necessary right now. And so you're welcome to reach out to me on Instagram, Rose Heartsong, or roseheartsong.com, and schedule a consultation, and we can have a conversation about diving into this realm of sacred sexuality and spirituality and all the things. So it's a really beautiful honor to have you, and I'm so grateful to have you as a sister.
Thank you, my love. The final word that's coming through right now as we close this out is a message to say that your pleasure is your power, and your power is needed in the world right now.
You felt that, didn't you? Let it sink in, take what you need, leave the rest, and always trust yourself. If this spoke to you, please follow, like, and share. It helps the message reach those who need it. Stay wild, stay free, and keep following your heart.